What does it feel like when guys are running around the sites and you allude to it? Like, oh yeah, we're tradespeople, we're all alcoholics. That's not a stereotype you want to be a part of?
Not at all. I want a culture shift. It's like a walking joke on trade sites of like, oh, we're all alcoholics. I'm like, don't put me in that classification. We're not all. Some of us are professionals. Some of us see this as a career. Some of us want to be the best people we can be. And like, plumbing was my escape.
PeopleBuilt is bringing a light to the tradespeople in the industry who are often forgotten and consistently taken for granted. Construction industry matters. It's been fascinating now to be able to have the platform to meet the men and women who work in our construction industry. Their concerns matter. Welcome to the PeopleBuilt podcast. Good day and welcome back to the PeopleBuilt podcast. Today I'm joined by Colton Oakes, who has been an 8-year journeyman plumber, primarily in Calgary and the Alberta area, working in the commercial side of our plumbing industry. He's currently an employee of Wiehler Mechanical and he's worked elsewhere. And today we're going to talk about a bunch of different topics that are important to Colton, including the stigmas around tradespeople and the people who work in construction. Colton, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, John.
So, how did you get into plumbing?
It's actually a funny story. I was a barista before this. No one ever would take me for a barista, but I was at a barista. There was this older gentleman who was a retired electrician. He'd come in daily, 5 o'clock. He'd order the same thing. And every day he would tell me, when are you getting a real job? And at the time, I was like, oh man, this guy, I loved my job. Why would I ever want to leave? And through circumstances, realizing, one day I want to have a family. One day I want to get married, have kids, that where I wasn't going to be able to support that. Made some decisions in my life that kind of put me at a disadvantage.
What decisions were those?
Drugs, substance abuse, really poor management of my spending. And I felt like I only had one option. That was the trades. So I started applying everywhere I could. At the time, this was 2016, 2017, to get a job in the trades, I found was very difficult. No one was responding. I felt like I was a qualified candidate and just everything was dry. So eventually, a buddy of mine opened up his own plumbing company. And I said, hey, are you looking for someone? He said, not at this time. So I kept searching. I got a job as a junior service advisor for Honda and got fired that week. First thing I did, hey, by any chance, are you looking? And he said, actually, I am. So fate kind of brought me to his doorstep and started with him that Monday, got fired on Friday, started on Monday. I had no idea what I was going to be doing. I thought plumbing was plunging toilets, putting in pipes, and that was kind of the extent of it. First day was a bathroom reno. Showed up in my cowboy boots with a pair of pliers and a hammer, and was kind of like, where do you want me to start? That's how I got into it, and 8 years later, running commercial projects.
It's amazing. And so you knew that plumbing was basically plunging toilets and putting pipe in.
Yeah.
What else did you know about like trades or construction at that time? Or what did you think about when you're getting into it?
I thought what most people thought outside of the industry is that it's where you go when you have no other options. That it's rough. Conditions aren't very good. But that it was a good way to make money and that there was a career there. My cousin, he's been a journeyman electrician for quite some time. He started being an electrician when he was 17. So I saw the money that could be made. And I was like, okay, this is my option. I don't have college. I don't have the money to go and spend 4 years. So what is my quickest path to being able to have a family? And it landed on the trades and plumbing to be that. So,
and now that's your experience then. Hard job, right? Like tough conditions, good money.
I would say so. It doesn't start off with good money.
Yeah.
I'll say that. Started out at $15 an hour, and I was a laborer, and through hard work, I've gotten myself to where I am. But it starts off hard. Doesn't pay well. That's probably sums up every single trades job. Is you get in, you're the lowest level. You're a material handler. You're taking the heaviest material on site and moving it from point A to point B. You're breaking up concrete, and you are the lowest paid guy on site doing the hardest physical work, not the hardest mental capacity work, but the hardest physical work. I almost gave up. I am not even gonna lie. Like year 2, year 3, I was like, is this really what I want to be doing? And through some mentors, it was just, this isn't going to be your forever. Plumbing is so diverse that what you're doing now, I was doing service plumbing and renovations at the time. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy busting up a homeowner's concrete to rough in a new bathroom from an existing line in a mechanical room. I didn't enjoy that. And I didn't know that there's more avenues, commercial, light industrial, commercial service. There's such a vast.
Well, and especially for people who don't know who can't put together like what those type of working conditions are, but generally like you're either working with a sledgehammer or a jackhammer, right? It's incredibly noisy, right? It's incredibly physically intensive to break up 4-inch thick concrete for 20 or 30 feet or like 60 square feet of concrete, right? It's dusty. They've started talking more about how the dust within concrete is very similar. Like they've called that like our generation's asbestos, right? I think it's the silica inside the concrete. And especially in the renovation side, that is just what you do. You break up floors, maybe you have some dust mitigation inside, but it is a dusty, hard job. And then you're packing out 50, 60 pound buckets of concrete and gravel only to pack in 50 pound packs of concrete to generally hand mix what's going back in after inspection. Was that basically 2 or 3 years of your life?
Basically, at least 2 jobs a week, I would say. So 2 mornings, my boss would be like, here's the jackhammer, spray out a line. I would chip it, dig it out, lay the pipe. He'd come back in the afternoon. Oh, good, it's done. Perfect. He was the concrete finisher, and he would come finish the concrete after I hauled all of it downstairs. And then as he would do that, I would haul the buckets of concrete up to the van, and we'd go dispose of it that day.
Yeah, and I guess if you wanted to do that, you could continue. You could be still doing that to this day if you wanted.
I could, yeah. And for most people, that's what they see themselves doing, right? Is, oh, this is the job, right? That all I'm going to be doing for the rest of my plumbing career is this. If you have 1 to 2 years of experience and that's all you've done, and you don't really kind of try to push yourself into those other directions, I found that I had a good boss to start off with. So he did get me doing other things, right? I was roughing in. I was doing service calls by myself, at a second year level. He left me with the phone while he went to Australia on his honeymoon for 18 days. So there was a lot of development and a lot of trust. But in some places in our industry, without that one-on-one where you're kind of forced to work, you have to put in the effort to progress your apprenticeship. If we're paying somebody to be a laborer, I'm not paying you to look at plants. I'm not paying you to think of what's happening. I'm paying you to bring this material to your journeyman who's already reviewed the plans, to help him install it and do whatever he says. So what I found out as a second to third year was during my times when I wasn't working, so my lunch breaks, my coffees, before work, after work, I had to get my eyes on the plants, ask the questions then to the foreman when my time isn't being paid for. Just to kind of progress, because I knew I didn't want to bust concrete. I knew I didn't want to haul 3-inch cast, and that's all. I wanted to be the guy installing. I wanted to be the guy laying out. I wanted to be the guy making the decisions. Because ultimately, as you go further and further up, the work on your body becomes harder. The work in your mind becomes a lot more demanding. What you have to keep inside your skull on a large project, it's a lot. And
so that really flies counter to what I hear a lot of, which is like, oh, that's not my job. I'm not paid to do this. And so like what I'm hearing you say is that, you were getting paid to haul pipe, haul concrete, haul buckets, like get on a jackhammer. And when you're on your break, that's when you chose to go look at plans, review material lists, generate questions for your boss to go, hey, I've got some questions about this, to try to progress your learning so that you weren't stuck doing these more physical based jobs, less thinking, more physical. But that was a choice you made, and that you weren't directed to do that by your boss.
I wasn't. And part of the way my brain's wired is I want to know the why. Sometimes people get a little tired when you're the first level apprentice saying, why are you doing this? Why are we doing this? When they're just trying to do the job. So I found that I needed to take my whys and I needed to go find them and then bring them to, hey, so as I'm seeing we're roughing in a kitchen sink. Is this why we're doing this way? Instead of just, why are you doing this way? Bringing in the question of, hey, I've already done some thinking into this. Is this why you are doing it this way? And that leads to a much better response from them. And it shows that you're actively engaged in your learning, right? It's learning on the job. It's school at work. So if you're not learning on the job, I don't think you're advancing your apprenticeship the way you should be. So you need to be proactive, because an employer, they have the responsibility to lead you up. But at the same time, things are moving fast. Things are being built quick at probably faster rates than we've ever seen. And there's not the time. We don't have the people. And if you want to get off the tools, if you want to do some other aspect, if you want to be a boiler room guy, you need to find a way to get yourself in that boiler room. You need to look at manuals. You need to learn about the boilers through the manuals. You need to go on Instagram, look at other people installing boilers, and just get the idea of like, hey, I'm getting this knowledge, bring it to your journeyman and have them answer those questions, but do that first step first of you do your research, figure out why your journeyman possibly is doing what he's doing, and bring him that question of, hey, I see we're doing this. Is this why we are doing it this way? Not just why are we doing this?
And then so am I right? So just to get my timelines right, have you been a journeyman for 8 years? You've been plumbing for 8 years?
I've been plumbing for 8 years.
Okay.
I've actually only been a journeyman since last September.
Okay. This is helpful to understand. So I think because there's so often like dealing with people who are newer in the industry or who are struggling inside and they're not progressing as fast as they'd like, which describes most people I know, is they don't have that willingness to go take the second look at plans and like go on your own time, like during lunch in the evening after, like go look, go draw, do it yourself, and then come with good questions. I find people think that asking why is enough. And I find in general when I'm trying to work with people is like asking why is very irritating if they haven't put any semblance of thought into it. And it helps me understand why you're actually pleasant to work with, right? That people will invest in you. People will take the time to coach you, is because you're putting in the work first and people can see it. So then the reinvestment of their time is a lot less.
Yeah.
Because you at least your why questions are motivated with some already pre-critical thinking.
Yeah. And like, think of, if you're writing any sort of exam, you have 4 prompts on a multiple choice exam. If I just come to you with the question without 4 prompts, how likely are you to get the right answer? And so now you're expecting your journeyman to basically lead you through the entire question that you're asking, instead of being able to be like, yeah, that is why we're doing it this way. Instead, now I have to explain to you possibly a code book reference, an installation reference, my personal choice of why I'm doing it this way versus another guy doing it another way. Because there's multiple ways to skin a cat.
Yep.
But ultimately, there are multi-level layers to a single question. Venting. Why a wet vent versus a dry vent? Why circuit vent versus just a wet vent? I need you to invest some time before you come to me with that question, because I could sit down with you for 3 hours and explain to you the answer to your question. But if you already do that little bit of research and you come to me with that, hey, are we doing a circuit vent for this reason because we have 8 fixtures that we're trying to vent, versus, could we have done a wet vent in this situation because we're only doing 3 fixtures, 4 fixtures? Having that thoughtfulness to your questions that you're answering, I think helped a bunch. But definitely I wasn't paid to look at plans, right? For my 3rd year, there was a little bit more that I got into plans because it was like, hey, Colton, go install this heating pipe. Here's the prints. But I wasn't able to get to that point of critical thinking without doing critical thinking on my off time.
I think that's super important for younger guys, or just anybody who's starting their career, is like how critical it is to do this work in some of your spare time and get some of the information. Because what I'm also hearing you say is that like the time at work was for work, that you're educating yourself on the theory on your own time, and then coming with educated questions back, trying to apply the theoretical knowledge to what you're doing in practice. And I think too often apprentices or even journeymen, they're not taking the time outside. They need a tremendous amount of education on the theoretical side, and they want to do that while being paid their full rate of pay. And I think too often as businesses and as managers, you go, I don't have time for this. Like, we're not getting the job done. You need to just do this. And then guys get frustrated, like, no, I need to learn. And there isn't that, what I'm going to say is a bilateral agreement. Like, well, no, you go learn a little bit. Go learn circuit venting, wet venting, go double check your fixture charts and come with educated questions, and I can help correct your knowledge, as opposed to like put on a course.
Yeah.
And I think that's helpful for me, because I think how often do we get this wrong? And a lot of it is guys who want to learn and will not apply any discretionary effort outside of work, and they just expect that the company teaches them. And that's just, that's not my experience, what happens in the trades. And it sounds like that's also not your experience.
It's not my experience. And for me, if I have an apprentice who comes to me with those thoughtful questions, I am now more likely, while I'm in the ground, in the mud, putting together some pipe, being like, hey, we're doing this way because now I'm more eager to answer your questions because I know you're thoughtful. So I'm going to give you the kind of nitty gritty as we're working of this is why we're doing this way. But you work with a guy for a week and they ask you these questions. You haven't built rapport, for one. And I don't want to waste my energy. Ultimately, like, it is exhausting to have the whole layout in your head, do the work, and then also have someone, oh, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? It's exhausting. And it's fun to engage in intellectual conversations with another intellectual. So even though that the intellect levels are going to be different from a laborer to a first-year apprentice to a second year to a third year to a fourth year to a guy, I learn from people who, are a year above me, a year below me, 10 years above me, 20 years above me.
Yeah.
But at least it's a lot easier to speak to a journeyman because there is a common understanding. But having an apprentice who's actively engaged in their apprenticeship, it's learning on the job. It's what AIT calls it. That's what we need to be treating it as. But you can't be expected that your employer is going to pay you to be on school time in the field. So
I agree with that. And that's my hope. That'd be a big hope for anybody who is watching the podcast, who's passing on to younger apprentices. Like, well, how do you be successful as an apprentice? How do you get the most out of your journeyman? And it's like, very clearly demonstrate that you're putting the effort in to try to understand before you ask why. And otherwise, it just reminds me of having that 2-year-old or 3-year-old who's constantly going, why?
Yeah.
Why? And you, come on, man. Like,
yeah.
And I think that helps with a lot of like clarity around where even some of my frustrations been with some working with guys who want to learn. And you're like, hey, did you read that? No. What are we doing here? So how did you, I assume you stopped with substance abuse and drugs. So when did that stop? Like, how successful were you with that? Like, did you stop before you started your apprenticeship? During, or like at what point did you say this was no longer a fit for you?
Yeah. So about 8 years ago, actually, no, sorry, not 8 years ago. It'd be 10 years ago now, was when I quit my substances. So, was depressed for a very long time. Didn't really realize kind of what was going on, and led me to wanting to feel things. And that wanting to feel things led me into substances that made me feel things for a short amount of time, made me feel worse things for a longer period of time, thus the vicious cycle. And I mean, it was through my faith in God that brought me out of that place and instilled kind of these values in me that I carry today. But I wouldn't have been able to do it without Jesus, if I'm being honest. It's still a struggle.
Yeah.
You know, like I can't say that I have full control, but I know how to keep myself out of situations in which I'm going to have less self-control. You know, I keep my alcohol consumption down. I don't hang out with people I used to hang out with. I got new friends. I got better mentors. And ultimately, I have something I want to live for. And that's my wife. That's my daughter. That's my faith. And my job and my career have been a huge part of that. Like, I wouldn't be where I am today without plumbing. You know, I was a barista making $19 an hour. It was great at the time. As serving people, as being able to be the best part of their day was my goal. But ultimately, I always wanted to be a dad. I always wanted to be a husband. I'm blessed to have a daughter now. And all of those things came from dark places, which I thought my dark places led me into a place of, I have no choice but to be a tradesman. Like, I'm at rock bottom. I may as well go plumbing pipes.
Well, because that's what I say is like, it actually, like, to a certain degree, like, I guess it bugs me to hear that's your story. Cause I like you, and like, I don't know you as a drug addict or drug dependent. I know you as a very smart, critical thinking, excellent communicating, quality producing plumber, right? Who also is a good advocate for his wife, his daughter, and an advocate to be a good dad. So that's why I know you, right? So then to hear that that the path for you to get into the trades was, well, I was a drug addict and I had no money. So I was like, you know what? Maybe the trades are for me. Yeah. And like, and I think it's neat to hear that it's not part of your current journey. Like, how much have you seen, like, inside of the trades or in the 8 years you've been in it? Where have you seen drug addiction or like drug use amongst your peers?
I mean, I've worked with people who are actively doing drugs on site to keep themselves awake, alert.
What kind of drugs would that be?
Well, cocaine. I don't know if anyone was doing anything harder than that, but it's like a walking joke on trade sites of like, we're all alcoholics. I'm like, don't put me in that classification. We're not all. Some of us are professionals. Some of us see this as a career. Some of us want to be the best people we can be. And like, plumbing was my escape.
Yeah.
It got me out of where I was. It got me into a well-paying job. I didn't need a college degree. And now I'm able to provide for a family. You know, I'm able to think about the future from where I am. As a first-year apprentice, you know, maybe a family was way far out of my comprehension, but it's doable. If you're smart, it's doable. I know guys, second-year apprentices, they're raising families. So just due to my circumstance and not being good with money back, took me a little bit longer to become stable. It took me a little bit of a higher income threshold to be stable, but ultimately it provided. And seeing it as a career, I think, was like a big mindset shift. Like I said, I almost quit. I almost quit at second to third year until I made that alignment in my mind of, this isn't just a job. You know, this is my career. It's not my last resort anymore, right? I see it as an avenue to much more.
That's an interesting reframe, because it starts out as a last resort, and now the longer you're in it, the less it's no longer a last resort.
Yeah.
What does it feel like when guys are running around the sites, and you allude to it, like, oh yeah, we're tradespeople, we're all alcoholics. That's not a stereotype you want to be a part of?
Not at all. I want a culture shift.
Yep.
Some of the smartest guys I know are tradesmen. Some of the most loving dads are tradesmen. Some of the most loving mothers are tradeswomen. Some of the best family men, some of the best entrepreneurs that I know, some of the best humans in general, I have met through the trades. And, maybe they're a dime a dozen, but I think it is changing. I think as people see school, traditional academics, university, college, is maybe not such a sure thing anymore. Being an electrician, being a plumber, being a welder, there's now these avenues for smart individuals. Because if you get into the trades when you're 17, with intention, you're smarter than I am, right? If I was smart enough, I would have done this when I was 16, 17. Because right now, I may not be sitting where I am right now. I may be sitting where you are, right?
Yep.
It's much different. The sooner you get into it, the more you can get out of it, right? I've got what I have out of 8 years. I've been a journeyman for 1.5 years. Some people are going to say, oh, you've only been a journeyman for 1.5 years. But I've been plumbing for 4 years. I was getting my 4th year level. I was getting paid very good money. Wasn't super enticing to go back to school until I realized, okay, the ticket, it does mean something. And so make it a career. Be intelligent in what you do out of high school, right? You go take some degree in general studies. You go take general studies for a year. What is that, $10,000 that you possibly just wasted? You could have then went and made $35,000, $40,000 that year as a laborer in a trade. Figured out, I didn't really like that. But what did you lose? You lost a year, and how much money? 0. But you go to general studies, you lost a year, and you lost money. And you didn't even gain income. You gained a year of general studies or a year of a degree you didn't finish. I would encourage everybody, 4 years, get into a trade, do 4 years, get your ticket, do whatever you want. Because once you have that ticket, no one can take it away. And if you want to go pursue an art degree, a physics degree, engineering, you can go do that after your ticket or while you have your ticket. And I don't think you'll regret it.
Like, what about just the hard work? Like, when you describe, like, what's hard about being a tradesperson or what's hard about being a plumber?
What's hard is waking up early, sometimes going home late. Depends what field you're in.
Yep.
Construction generally have pretty rigid hours. Service, sometimes you're on call. It's the dead of winter in Calgary, and you're working 90 hours in a week. Excuse me. And you're not getting sleep. You're going back to work the next day. The only interaction you had with your wife is a kiss on the lips when you leave, and you don't see her till the next day. That's hard. It's hard trying to keep your head straight when stress comes at you. Our job, plumbers specifically, there's something intrinsically stressful about what we do. I'm sure there is with every other trade, but I haven't done that trade to know. But I know when you're turning on water for the first time and you're running around that house trying to hear for the air hissing out before the water comes, that is stress. When you leave for the job and you're like, oh, did I do that correctly? That is stress. When you get home and for some reason you're scrolling Instagram and the thought comes in your head, oh man, did I turn that valve back on? That's stress. And it's an intrinsic part of our job as plumbers. I'm sure it is with every other trade. But that level of stress over a prolonged period of time is exhausting. I
think you're spot on. And I don't see it the same way. I don't see other trades with that same level of stress. Like the number of jobs where you can like make one decision, like turn on a breaker and flood a house.
Yeah.
Right? Drive a nail, flood a house. Like I think within the plumbing trade specifically, it's not for the faint of heart, and it is inherently stressful when you turn the water on in a home or a building by yourself, and and for anybody who's never done it before, you're sitting in a basement mechanical room and you tweak the valve on just a little bit, and then you listen. Then you tweak it on a little bit more, you listen more, and you turn it off and you listen, and it's this like your heart's going.
Yep.
And you're just hoping that you're not flooding the place because it's already late at night. You know, you're only ever turning the water on just like at the end of the day. And if you've been doing it long enough, you flooded a house.
Yep.
And it's one of the worst feelings you can ever have. If it's pre-possession, you're dealing with angry supervisors and missed possession dates. You're flooding a house after possession. You're flooding people's homes with possessions where their kids are. And nobody wants that stress. And I think being able to articulate to people, when you get into that industry, you are in people's homes.
Yeah.
Like it is personal, and it's not for the faint of heart. I think being able to learn that level of care that you will then have for your job and that what you do actually matters, because you can connect what you do today to someone's family. I think that's another thing for that larger educational value for someone who may not be a tradesperson for life, but they get this. It's really being able to connect like with the client, that what you do matters. And there's not a lot of like professions where you get to be really deeply connected with the person who lives in their home.
Exactly. And doing renos, custom homes, custom renos, I think that ultimately made me a way better tradesman. I will say, if you haven't done renos in your plumbing career, you are not the best plumber you could be, because doing renos, homeowners, designers specifically, want the impossible done in an existing home that is 50 years old. They want to move a toilet across the bedroom. It's easy when everything is there, but HVAC's there, wiring's there, joists are there. You have to then talk, hey, I don't think I can do this. We're going to have to put a new engineered beam in. Do you really want to be the person to bring that up, or do you want to try to make it work somewhere else? You're kneeling on joists. You're troubleshooting like you've never troubleshot before. Like, I would just imagine mechanics on current cars, all the electrical that goes into it, you have to be an excellent troubleshooter. Renos, same thing. You have to be able to troubleshoot and do the impossible and make it possible. And that's what a reno plumber does. I think that's what a good reno plumber does.
So when in someone's career or apprenticeship should they start renovation? Should they get right into it first thing, or like if you had your dream apprenticeship path, what would it look like?
It'd be the one I have. I think the early parts of your career, do renovations, do production housing, something along those lines, where you get to install a lot of pipe very quickly. You get to do repetitive actions. You get to do that troubleshooting early, because it gets you a plumbing brain faster. If you read blueprints and that's all you do is, I bring my pipe to my journeyman, we put it in this hanger, we clamp it together or we glue it together, and you're just following a set of prints, I think that that's good once you have a good understanding of plumbing code. I think that's good later on in your career. Commercial's hard work, but the systems in place can sometimes make it easier. I'm using a lift. I'm not up on a ladder. I'm not in a crawl space. I'm not kneeling on joists, trying to stick two pieces of pipe that have been together, trying to glue a Y in to run a new shower drain. Doing that hard stuff first, the chipping the concrete, the hauling buckets, it gives you appreciation for the trade. But I like to tell people, like, diversify your trade. Plumbing is so vast, is so diverse. I haven't even touched every avenue. I suck at troubleshooting large boiler systems because I haven't had a bunch of experience with it. But when it comes to the install, the reading, able to find a poly B line in someone's house, I'm pretty good at that. I feel like I have X-ray vision because I've seen it enough. But if you've never seen that and you're a commercial plumber and you've never done anything residential, You will walk into somebody's house and you won't be able to know where that water line is. And you may not be able to help that person, even though you're a journeyman plumber. You have all the skills to install the pipe, know the code, and know how to do it really well and proficiently. It's those little things, those little nuances to every part of the job that, hey, I have x-ray vision. I know where your water mains are going up to your second floor. I only need to cut right here and right here. I don't need to cut over here because I know there's nothing there. I know I can access this from upstairs and I can pull a new line. Now, commercial guys who started in commercial are probably going to say the same thing to me. Well, there's all these little nuances, but diversify. Take charge of your trade. I think that's one of the beautiful things of Wiehler is we have so many divisions that I think it is a true possibility for an apprentice to touch every aspect of the trade. We have service, we have production homes, we have custom, we have commercial. So I'm not really liking it over here. I don't like installing 4-inch cast iron. Okay, go over to the production guys. It's all plastic. It's lighter, but just know the pace is going to increase. Service, you're now dealing with homeowners. There's all these different aspects that you don't take into play, but there's something for everyone.
I think that's an interesting part. And I think when I grew up in we did production residential housing, primarily for Albee Homes and New Vista. So that's the world I knew. Go rough houses in, you had just a hair under a week to rough in a 2.5 bath house. Right. And you work with the same guys over and over and over again. And I really enjoyed it. The camaraderie, I agree with you. Some of the nicest, best people I've ever met. I've come from the trades, still friends with them to this day. And I just learned a tremendous amount. The vast majority of my learning after work, right? Sitting in a house, right? With this was 20 years ago, but sitting in a house with a case of beer, right? With the framers, the electrician, the HVAC guy, and the plumber, right? And all having a couple of beers, just looking around, and you just sit there and look and I remember asking Harry the framer, what's a bearing point? I've heard the term. You guys use the term bearing all the time. What is bearing? You just walk up and do see this stud, see this beam, this is what all this stuff means. Yeah. And it was never stuff that during work hours, because during work, he just didn't talk to anybody. He was moving fast, not just quick, not fast. But there's no time to talk. Yeah. But man, put a beer in the guy's hand. You could learn what I feel years of education, 20 minutes. Yeah. Yeah, this is this. Everything you learned about framing. You line up studs under joists, so then you can go up. And then I would start walking into houses and go, this is why I like following Harry and why I don't like following that guy, right? Because he's got his joist in between the two studs, two joist cavity, or he's got his stud between the two joist cavity. You have no place to bring up a stack. Now you're cutting stuff out. Nobody wants to do that. And I think it goes back to having that willingness to stick around after and take ownership and ask good questions, which, man, does that bug me when people don't have good questions.
And why do you think he was able to answer your questions at that time? Because the stress of doing the work to get paid and not get fired, right? If he was just sitting there, I'm just talking to the plumbing apprentice for an hour. Yep. What's his boss going to say? I don't pay you to do that. Yeah. But after hours, the stress of producing, it goes away. Those questions are a lot easier to ask.
How do you deal with the stress of producing?
I don't know if I deal with it very well.
that was not my question. What do you do? So you finish your days.
Yeah.
It's stressful.
I've learned to turn my phone off. I'm not in a position in which if somebody needs to get a hold of me, like yourself or Dave or Troy, if I see them call, okay, I'll pick it up. I know it's going to be quick. I know they don't want to bother me, and I know they don't want to be having a conversation after hours either. But being able to disconnect, that phone going off, and just being able to be present with my wife, with my daughter, play video games. I was talking to my daughter last night. I was like, Dad just needs to play half hour. Dad's been doing a lot of thinking today, and Dad just needs to not think for half an hour. And so having those ways you can disengage your brain, your body, you need to get away from work. You need to not think about work when you go home.
Well, and what I'm hearing, it's just healthy boundaries. Yeah. I've been chatting a lot for the last couple of weeks. And I was trying to think, what makes people successful that I work with? Why do I have some problems with some people and no problems with other people. Like, what are some commonalities? And I mentioned this one. I've come up with, they have to be competent. Anybody who I've ever worked with, if they're not competent, that sets up conflict. Then they have to care about the company. I find that's very important. And then the last one is they have to care about themselves. And it's in those healthy boundaries that being able to say, it's like, I shut my phone off. And John, if you call, because I know you're not bothered, like, you're like, it's important, I'll take it. And it's a really interesting line, because that to me exemplifies what I look for. It's that, well, you care about the company and you care enough about yourself that you won't allow yourself to be inundated with phone calls, right? You're not on your phone all night long trying to solve problems. And you still care enough to be like, if something's important, I'm available. Where did you learn that from?
It's just a care. I care about my job, and I want to rephrase job. I care about my career.
Okay.
I've gotten to where I am now because of a care for wanting to do more, but doing more doesn't always mean doing more. A simple act of answering the phone when the boss calls. It's 5:00. I'm at home. Okay, my boss is calling. I'm not just going to let it go to voicemail. I'm going to pick it up. How much effort did that take me? Not a whole lot. I had to be like, hey, hon, can you watch Ensley for a second? Really quick. Or I can even be on the phone while I watch my daughter. Minimal effort. And knowing that, like, this is my paycheck has a lot of value to that. And that I want to learn as much as I can. Even though that phone call's coming in, there's something to learn most likely on the other end. It's how am I prepping for my next? How am I prepping for tomorrow is most likely what the phone call's about. Or, this problem we had earlier in the day, this is a resolution. So again, it allows me, if I get that phone call, it allows me to disconnect because I'm not thinking about that problem I had earlier, or I'm not thinking about the problem that's coming up tomorrow because my supervisor has gotten me the answers. If I don't pick that up, I'm probably going to sit there and be like, oh man, what are we doing tomorrow? Or what are we going to do about this problem today? So
do you find that like you're able to pick the phone up and it's not stressful or it's stress relieving because like your supervisor, your boss, like is not abusing that? Like they're not calling you all the time like that?
Yeah.
Is that the difference?
I know that if Dave, like my direct supervisors, they never call me after hours. So if they call me after hours, it probably means I'm probably going somewhere else tomorrow. So I should maybe look at my GPS, see how long it's going to take me to get there, or that I'm picking someone up, or something has shifted. But problems can always be solved the next day, right? So it's generally how I start my day or how something that ended the day is being resolved, right? So if you have two bookends, start of the day, end of the day. If something happens between those two bookends that doesn't get resolved, if I'm getting a phone call outside of my bookends of work, it's probably a resolution. So.
Well, and that's kind of nice. I think from a manager's standpoint, I think that's refreshing to hear, right? That you can see that that's not being abused. I think a lot of the stereotype around like, because there's countries now that are establishing like right to disconnect, right? Which I'll be honest, like I'm a huge fan of. Everybody should disconnect from their phones, right? There should be times where people are just unavailable, but I would also hope that it's a natural disconnection, right? That phone call that comes at 6:00 and you're looking at it going, well, it's either a resolution or a schedule change. And if it's going to impact me tomorrow morning, I'd just rather know. Yeah. To me, that makes sense. Yeah. And I feel bad for all these people who work at companies where they're just being inundated with garbage information at all hours of the day and they don't feel like they can just not respond or not read it. That sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's maybe a thing of our trade where, okay, I'm going to a job site. I'm going to worry about that job site. I don't need to worry about all of these other things. But as you progress in the trade, you have to start worrying about much more. Yeah. Your umbrella isn't just that water line that you're installing or the drainage that you've been selected to oversee, right? Now, as you progress, okay, the guys who are coming to my site, are they going to show up? Are my guys sick? Do I need to try to pull another guy from another site? Do I need to reach out to my supervisor to help facilitate that? Do I need to have certain equipment on site? Things start piling up, and that's where the workload on the body decreases, but the workload on the mind increases. And I want more of the mind. I would take the mind over the body any day, but still remaining active. Like, that's the ideal. You remain active, you troubleshoot in the field, you problem solve in the field, but I'm not the one jackhammering. That's heaven.
That's the goal. What was it like taking paternity leave? What was it like asking for paternity leave?
I was worried. If people don't know, I started with Wiehler. My wife was due to give birth 3 weeks after my start date with Wiehler. I worked with Wiehler for a week, and my first daughter decided to come 2 weeks early. I was stressed. I was like, oh man, here I am I only asked for a week off because I was like, I need to get back to work as soon as possible. It's a new job. And it was fine. They're like, yeah, take the week off. Fully understandable. And then 2 days after my daughter was born, we get a gift basket. I'm like, who's sending me a gift basket? Who knows that we just had a kid? Anybody who is in the know has already come to the house, or, we've seen them. And I get it. It's got this big fuzzy duck in it, and it says, congratulations from Wiehler. And right then I was like, oh, this company's different. Nobody knows me here besides HR and my direct managers. And here I am getting a gift basket. Here I am being told, it is okay. We will be here when you're done. And there were some complications. My daughter got jaundice, so I took another week off. Hey guys, I'm sorry to say this, but I'm going to have to take another week off. No problems. We'll see you when you get back. Like, that kind of care and understanding for a family, the wait, was just, I was able to enjoy it. I was able to enjoy my newborn. I was able to support my wife without the stress of, oh, is my job going to be there when I get back? I have the right to take paternity leave, but doesn't always mean that that right is, what is the word I'm looking? That right isn't acknowledged, if that's the right word.
I think what I'm hearing you say, and what I've heard people from like other experiences, is that there's some sort of like either resentment or punitive action kind of afterwards, where there's that little bit of like, oh yeah, you can take it, you can come back, but we're gonna get you.
Yeah,
like there'll be that little bit of something afterwards. You get put on a job that's crappy, like there's some sort of punishment that goes along with it.
Yeah, or there's just not hours for you when you come back. Like, oh, you decided to take some time off, we had to hire someone else, and things happen. Mental health happens, tragedy happens, unexpected circumstances. Your house floods, your house is on fire. We have people who have
that's happened. Yeah.
And those kind of things happen, and you need time off. And to have an employer, not just at the HR level, like that's what sets Wiehler apart, is it's not just the HR like, oh, Colton, it's going to be okay. Because HR doesn't dictate how my boss treats me, how my coworkers treat me.
Right.
Having that whole culture of like, we understand things happen, things come up, but it's also important, like, okay, you let me have that week off. Okay. Oh, now it's 2 weeks. How do I show up when I come back?
How did you show up when you came back?
I think I showed up well. I did what was asked of me. I tried to go above and beyond. We looked after what needed to be looked after. I made sure there wasn't any other time off that was happening. The only time off that is taken is when it's needed. A baby is teething in the middle of the night, and my wife needs to sleep the next day or she is going to fall apart. I need to be able to support her by looking after my daughter while she has that sleep, right?
So if your company backs you in that, right? So on a personal level, it's your time and need, or your wife's time and need, or your daughter's time and need. So you take time away from the company. It has negative ramifications. It's all tight schedule. So your peers, because you're right, it's not HR who suffers. Right? HR could be like, absolutely, you have this. but it's not them. So your peers and coworkers, they have to work harder, right? Your boss got to juggle the schedule because it's generally happening fairly quickly. So how do you show up after that? Or like, what do you do when other people need time off? Like, in order to kind of give back, if that's the right word? Or do you feel any sense of obligation to give back to your peers in that regard? Or is it like, no, this is a right I have? Like, how do you see it?
It's not a right. Like, it is a right, but if you're a good human being, you'll see it as not a right. You'll see it as, okay, you've sacrificed for me. Let me sacrifice for you. Now, that sacrifice doesn't need to look like a lot. That sacrifice is, I show up early, I go home late. And it's not late. You know, I go home 30 minutes later to ensure everything that has been missed, possibly while I've been gone for those 2 weeks, is caught up on. You know, okay, have I reviewed all those emails? Well, I'm going to do those emails before I start work to make sure there's nothing that I'm walking into that's new. But there is this cultural thing that's happening right now of, I'm an employee, I'm showing up for my 40 hours and that is it. You need to give to me. I will give you 40 hours. And companies, I think, dig their own grave when it comes to a mentality like that.
Okay.
If you are a company that doesn't give and give willingly, and graciously, like, with not expecting anything in return. Colton, we'll give you these 2 weeks, but we need you to work on the Saturday you come back. That was never a conversation, right? So there's not the give and take. It's the give with expectance. Hey, you're going to give back. And if you're an employee and that's your mindset of 40 hours, that's all you're getting, not doing any more, it's not in my job description, then I think you're at a company where they've dug their own grave of they just take or they give with expectancy, right? They either take or give with expectancy. Giving generously is way different than giving. John, if I gave you a Snickers bar and tomorrow I said, hey, John, where's the $2 for that Snickers bar? It's not giving graciously. It's giving with expectancy. You're going to pay me back. And how likely are you to then give me a Reese's when I ask for it?
It's an interesting concept because I know that's one area that I definitely struggle with is that when, and I agree with you, by the way. I also agree that it is the company's responsibility to trust first. Like we talk about, like within Wiehler, we went through our 5-year strategic planning. We talked about our values. We're like, trust is a value that everybody has. And we talked about having values that we hire and fire on. I thought about it, is it reasonable for me to expect that somebody who gets recently hired with Wiehler as a company trusts the company? I'm like, no, to me, that's completely unreasonable. It's actually illogical that anybody would ever trust a company, especially when they just start with. And then it gets into, well, how do we build and garner trust? Okay, this is super inconvenient. You can take 2 weeks off. You could take a month off, and not try to tie expectation back into that. Like recognizing that, like, not only is it a right, like they do have a right to take it. Yeah. Nobody has to, like, you don't have to show up to work. And then to then hope that if we create a culture where we respect the needs of our employees and that we listen to their concerns and try to work with them, that in turn, when given the choice for them to care back about the company, that they do. Yeah. Without making it a condition. Because I agree with you, it doesn't feel right making it a condition. And it sucks sometimes because you want to, I want to make it a condition, but it cheapens it. Hey, I'll give you the Snickers bar, but you have to give me $2. It's like, okay, that's kind of like loaning me a Snickers bar. Yeah. Like, it's not really a gift. So I hear what you're saying. And I think it's also difficult at times from the employer standpoint to remember when the employee gives back. It's much easier to just remember when employees take advantage of me. You go, oh yeah, I give that guy so much and he screwed me. Yeah. It's a lot more difficult to intentionally acknowledge and remember that you did take time off and before you came back, you reviewed your emails and you stayed a little bit later every single day for a week to make sure that those jobs got caught up. And then when somebody else in your team like needed time off, you additionally worked extra, and nobody asked you to do any of it.
Yeah.
And especially, I think, was within the trades too, because so much of the work that you do happens away from your manager's supervision. Like nobody actually sees what you do.
No.
Nobody like, and it's the crappy part of anybody who works in the construction industry almost, is that the vast majority of your productivity is outside of the direct line of sight from your managers. They cannot tell what you've done. And so if you're doing a good job, it's really the honor system, or you have to find a very respectful way to toot your own horn.
Yeah.
And which is always my hope, that you find a good way to toot your own horn.
Yeah. Well, it's not only what you've done, but what conditions have you done it in?
Yeah.
What were the factors around it, right? Somebody could see me rough in a 3-piece bathroom, be like, Colton only roughed in a 3-piece bathroom. Why is he wanting to be celebrated for this? Well, because I roughed in this 3-piece bathroom while it was raining outside, while, there was all of this stuff happening around, while I had to go get material because material was shorted or something like that, right? There's not those extra little things. We tend to just look like, he only got that done.
So how do you respectfully advocate for yourself?
Communication, start an open line. If things aren't the way they need to be, letting that be known. Can
you think of something that you've advocated for recently, or anything where you're just like, man, I've either done a really good job that nobody knows about and I want to make sure it's heard, or something going, I'm going to get in trouble if I don't tell somebody about this. This is going to land back on my shoulders.
Yeah. Scheduling delays, right? We're starting a project. Project visually is behind. You show up, things are not where they say they are on the schedule. So if I don't say something about that, whose fault is that? Is that my supervisor's fault? No. Is that the builder's fault? No. The builder's going to be like, we're on schedule. And my management is going to be like, they're on schedule. Colton, why aren't you on schedule? Well, because we weren't on schedule. But having that documentation process of, hey, guys, I don't think we're going to be ready, or the builder's not going to be ready for us for this date that they've said they will be. I think we need to look into this. Because ultimately that will fall back on me. That will be, Colton, why didn't you let us know? Colton, why didn't you let us know? We needed to let the builder know that they weren't ready. Because I thought the builder knew they weren't ready. The builder is always ready. They're always ready for whatever they have in store today. Whether or not that's actually what's on the schedule, they're ready, and ultimately they're the builder. We're not at their mercy, but if we're not proactive, we are at their mercy. If we don't kind of draw our line in the sand and say, hey, this is where we are, this is where we need to be in order to do our job, I don't see that being a possibility tomorrow. I don't see that being a possibility in a week. What are you guys doing to correct this? I think that's what a foreman should be doing. I think that's how I advocate for myself. I also think of being like, hey, I need to take a week off. This project's delayed, John. Can I take my paternity leave? I think that's a good way, is knowing when to kind of strike when the iron's hot. Of things are slow. I could probably use a couple days off. Hey, can I take a couple days off? I just need to recharge. If you do that during a slow time, it's probably going to be a lot more well received than during a busy time. But also, I think it is at Wiehler, like you ask for that anytime and it's going to be okay. But that giving graciously as an employee, give graciously to your employer. You see things are slow, things are slowing down. Maybe it's a good time to go to school. Maybe it's a good time to take some holidays and spend some time with your kids, right? It's being mindful of like, you're not the center of the universe as much as we think we are. These people are paying your paycheck. This guy is working hard at scheduling jobs to ensure you are employed. So give him the heads up of like, hey, I see that it's slow. Do we have anything coming up? No. Would you be okay with me taking some time off?
I think that's a super important one. And like the more you can open up that dialogue, is like, I think that's another thing within the trade, like trades in general is it is so cyclical, and it's cyclical weekly almost. Or you can have like this huge week where it's all hands on deck, and the next week it's half hands on deck. And then to be able to kind of work within that, within your family, and to try to structure that where it's just not a 40-hour work week. We're not bankers. And I think that, hearing that that's how you try to approach it makes a big difference, because then I can see it, because that'd be another side too, whereas like before you make that phone call about trying to take off 2 weeks, right? You've already put in the thought that goes, no, I've looked at the job site. I know the schedule says they're going to be ready. I just don't think they're going to be ready. And then we sit down and we have the conversation that goes, okay, you can take the time off, but if I need you, you come back,
yeah.
Right? Like right away, right? Is that the deal? It's like, yeah, that's the deal.
Yeah.
And then it's that middle ground between like, it's freely giving, but also trying to say, it's like, hey, like, can you still have my back too? I've got your back, but if I need you, will you help me? And well, for sure. Yeah. And we all agree that we're probably not going to need you.
Yeah.
But miracles happen every day.
Exactly.
I think that's a really neat part. Those are the conversations that I enjoy with like high critical thinking people who give a shit. Right. And to me, it exemplifies that you know what you're doing. You care about yourself. I want to spend time with my family. And I think this is a good time for the company that I spend time with my family.
Yeah.
Do you agree? Yes. But if it ends up not being a good time for the company, can you change your mind? Yeah. Yes. Well, all right. So we agreed.
Yeah.
And it was really neat exchange. And I think probably provided me a lot of clarity in what I look for in just somebody good to work with. Because eventually, because inevitably it worked out really well.
Yes.
Right. We never talked at all. You never, you took your 2 weeks off and you came back and the work was ready. And you go, man, I wish we could do more of that. And it has not always been my experience when people leave that they do try to put in that thought. I think there's a lot of people who do want to give 3 months notice that I'm going to take a holiday. I think that sounds good on paper because we're giving lots of advance notice, but I look at people and go, but what if we're busy that week?
Yeah, exactly.
Can you just tell me roughly that you want to leave sometime in March? And then we'll figure out when March comes, what week works out. And for some people, it works out really well. I find that the higher people get up in management and leadership, the more I want less time. One of my favorite exchanges I have with my senior leaders is when I walk into their office and they go, by the way, I'm gone for the next week. Like, what do you mean? Yeah, I looked at the schedule. It's all laid out. There's nothing really coming up. My guys are prepped. I'm good. So it's a lull. I'm leaving. And it's like, boom, high five. Right. And there's nothing more scary than someone's like, hey, by the way, in September of 2026, I'm gone for 2 weeks. And you're like, will we be busy during that time? What's the plan? And it's very, very counter to a lot of what we want with field guys, because then you can pre-book your schedule. And it's really neat that you almost arrive to that conclusion on your own, that it is okay to look at a schedule and to advocate for your own time off with technically negative days notice.
Yeah.
Right?
Negative days. Yes.
Right. And I think that's really special about showcasing your skills from apprenticeship, reading plans on your unpaid time and trying to think critically to try to advance your career to where you want it to be. And then even still that exact same skill, which is just looking at a schedule, recognizing where things are at, and then having the courage to go, hey, by the way, can I just leave?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there's something I want to say too is not everyone is wired like me. So if you're an apprentice out there, find what you enjoy in the trade, because whatever you enjoy in the trade, there is so much of it. You could run water lines for the rest of your life and be employed. You could run only drainage for the rest of your life and be employed. You could insulate pipes for the rest of your life and be employed. You could just work on boilers. You could just fix toilets. You could auger drain lines. If that is what you enjoy of the job, you could do it for the rest of your life every single day. And what you like now may change as you grow more understanding of the great awe that is plumbing, the plumbing code, the gas code book. As you start to understand it more, maybe you're a little bit more analytical. You want to be involved in the thinking process. Maybe you just want to make sure that you have the best copper runs in all of Calgary. But take pride in what you do, whatever it is. If it's drainage, try to be the best drainage guy in the city. That was always my goal, was I want to be the best plumber. How do I do that? Okay, I need a rounded skill set. And I'm not the best plumber, by the way, but I want to be one day. And round your skill set, find what you're really good at, and improve what you're really bad at. Because what you're really bad at is what is stopping you from being that next level guy of, I can depend on him for anything, right? When I get a guy who's a problem solver, can be taught anything, I think. If you can solve problems, if I can tell you, hey, this is what I need you to do, and I can come back, and it's maybe not the way I've done it, but you've done it. Okay, now I can be like, hey, let's try this next time. And you tell me, oh, I did it this way because this. And I'm like, oh, perfect. So you're a problem solver. People always get scared when I say, why did you do it this way? They think that that's like, you've done it wrong, but it's a question to see where your head's at of, oh, you did it this way. You give me an answer. Oh, because this was going to be too high if I cut it any higher. Okay, perfect. Thank you for that answer, because it shows me you're thinking. You're not just there installing pipe. Why did you offset down and not up on your water lines? Oh, because eventually 20 feet down, I was going to run into that. Thank you for being a problem solver. Not going up over, oh, I'm going to run into this. Let me waste 2 more fittings to go down again. Try to think, when your journeyman's working, think about what he's doing and why he's doing it. Run that through your head. Oh, why is he holding his crimpers this way? Why is he holding his pipe wrench that way? Because when you go to install those 2 black iron fittings and you're sitting here like this, trying to wrench them together, wondering why you can't do it, you should have asked yourself, oh, why is my journeyman holding his pipe wrenches so close together? Oh, it's because of leverage.
Yeah, that's
exactly.
funny.
How many times have we seen guys do that?
Yeah.
And you're like, man, just bring your pipe wrenches, put it against your body, put it against the floor.
And like, you have a huge advantage because you're a big guy. Like, I was a short guy, so I had to come across leverage. Like, I had to come by that honestly. There was no way I was ever powering through any piping problem.
Yeah.
That had to be solved with knowledge.
Yeah. But just critical think while you're not the one doing the thinking. Think about, what does he need next? If you are a gopher, if you go for this and you go for that, you think about what he's going to need next. So then the next time he says, hey, go get this, it's in his hand. That, will win you brownie points.
Oh.
But not only that, will be like, this kid's on it.
Yeah.
This is somebody I want with me. Make yourself unfireable at any level.
Well, but I'd even go one step further, is like, it's not even unfireable. It's now you're desired.
Yeah.
Right. So it goes from like, hey, how's that apprentice? No, don't take that apprentice from me. And we've had some apprentices where you go to the journeyman like, hey, can we like get, Austin over here? No, he's mine.
Yeah.
And you're like, be that guy.
Yeah.
Right. Be the guy who the journeyman does not want you to leave. And at most companies, like, the apprentice works for the journeyman. The apprentice thinks that he works for the company, but you work at the journeyman's leisure.
Yeah.
Right. And then just being passionate about that, getting ahead of the apprentice, understanding the needs, paying attention, and asking questions. Say, I notice you keep your hands tight together. Why do you do that? Guys will tell you if you ask a decent question.
Decent.
Really? Hey, how do I tighten this? Dude, like rightsy tightsy, leftsy loosey, man.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah. Being specific with your questions as well.
Yeah.
Right? Don't just ask a vague question, because if you ask a vague question to a journeyman, he's going to think you're dumb, because that vague question, when you go to the code book, it applies to 12 different items, the question you just asked.
Yeah.
So what answer do you want me to give you? It's the answer of, I don't want to answer that right now.
Yeah.
So
that's a good one. So as we come to an end, do you have any questions for me? Anything that's been you've wanted to learn or wonder?
You've grown Wiehler to, what is it now?
Just a hair over 150 people.
150 people.
3.
So in that time, there's got to be highs and lows. Booms and busts. Where do you see us being right now in the plumbing market? Are we in a boom? Are we in a bust? Are we just kind of staying with it?
From an industry perspective?
Yeah.
I think from an industry perspective, commercial seems to be very busy. Like there's a billboard on Glenmore Trail now at McLeod for Custom Electric hiring electricians. And I haven't seen billboards advertising for tradespeople in a long time. And that to me is a very strong indication that's a very strong labor market for commercial. And I would say in residential, the production of houses is down on a year-over-year basis. It's down to historical averages, which is great. It's not a bust cycle. It's at historical averages, but those historical averages are down like 20, 30% from its peak. And that's created, like, we've had the capacity in the industry to meet that 20% increase. And now we are 20% slower than the peak. And that's created, like, for lack of a better word, a depression. And the residential market, I think, is struggling from a pricing standpoint, because there's less demand than there are people for it at this point in time. And so it's created two different economies from what I can see, is that there's very, very, very strong labor demand for commercial and not as strong labor demand in residential. And that change happened fairly quickly. And then I think there's definitely an overall lack of just high skill, high care, high competency, right? Like, and I think there's always a lack of that, but I think it's getting worse. I think, because there does not seem to be as much willingness to let new people into the industry. I think it's hard for people to start. And I've heard that from many, many different people, like including yourself. And I think we've lost a lot of the time and money that used to get put into training people, I think, is gone. And I think the margins in our industry are just too tight now to really train people well. And so now, unless you have somebody who's high skill, high care, high character, and I agree with you, not a lot of people are like you, it really compromises the apprenticeship process, and it compromises the journeyman that we end up with 8 years later. And so for any of the industries that are relying on high skill, high care, I think that's a very challenging market. And I think that's separate from commercial, residential, or anything else. So it'll be interesting to see how that part of the industry adapts. And then I think from a service standpoint, what I've learned is that the service business for plumbing and sheet metal and furnaces seems to vary by the weather. So if it's minus 30 outside, we're all super busy. And if it's plus 30, we're all super busy. And if it's 4 degrees and sunny outside, the phones are just dead. And I think that's a fascinating business to be a part of, and how much money really gets spent in, like, during peaks. I think as a consumer standpoint, it's really paying attention, where if you need a furnace replaced, replace it when it's 6 degrees outside. Like, there's lots of people out there who can do it, right? If you need an air conditioner, do that when it's 6 degrees outside. And then, proper care and maintenance beyond that. But that's kind of where I see the industry right now. It's one's doing really well and one's not doing that super great.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah.
So, being a successful business owner, which I'm assuming you are, we're doing pretty well. What advice would you give John Wiehler, first year apprentice, after not just this conversation, but your decades in the industry?
It's a good question. I'd say, like, very early on, start to document what makes me successful. Like, what do people like about me, and why? What do I do that people want more of? And then be able to impart that more, like, clearly, like, both verbally and in written form, into the people who I'm training. And I think too often it's easy. It was easy for me to, like, be good at something or be well liked, and really take that, like, well, I'm special. And it compromised my training of the people underneath me. And so the sooner I was able to understand that I'm not special, that I have skills, people do like me, but there's a reason I'm doing something, and that something is repeatable by somebody else. And the earlier on I could get that and help people understand what it is and what people value about the service that, when the company was small, that I was providing, the less stressed people would be along the way trying to fill those shoes. Because I think the biggest gap that I would create, and the biggest gap that you'll create with the people that rely on you, is that they can't fill your shoes because they're not the same as you, and they don't understand what makes you special, and they will just grind trying to be as good as you, but they don't know how. And so the more you, or the more I am just able to help spell it out, like, this is why I'm good. This guy likes me because I do this.
Yeah.
These are the things, the more easy it is for guys to backfill and reduce stress for the organization.
That's awesome. That's good insight. Thank you.
Wicked. Well, it's been fun, Colton. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the PeopleBuilt podcast with John Wiehler. For more episodes, visit peoplebuilt.ca.